Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High-impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Mac Story.
Hello, and thanks for stopping by the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast today. So I'm actually recording this episode on July the 4th. I'll be scheduling it to release on July 25th, 2022. So as I'm recording it right now, I'm preparing to head out. Rhea and I'll be heading out to Seattle, the Seattle, Washington area. We'll leave on July the 12th, and we're going to have a busy week, a little over a week. We're going to be speaking 6 different speaking engagements with 6 different clients over an 8-day period. And the last one will be on July the 20th. So this episode will be coming out right after we finish that busy streak. As long as everything goes according to plan, that's what's on our schedule right now. And we got a lot of stuff going on. But I do what I always do. I get ahead on these podcast episodes. I record them in advance. Sometimes I may have 1 or 2 recorded and scheduled out, and sometimes I may have 10 or 12 or 15 scheduled out in advance and already pre-recorded. So anyway, we're excited to travel out. We'll leave Atlanta, Georgia on July the 12th and head out to Seattle, and then we'll head down south of Tacoma to a small town. I probably never say it right, but it's Puyallup, Washington. And we'll be speaking to Northwest Precast. We've been out there before. We're excited to go back again and see Tim McGordy, the owner, and his leadership team and all the folks there who make it happen. So maybe some of you are listening after we were just out there. So we're excited to go see them. We speak from basically 11 to 4 on July the 13th, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. for 4 hours. And then we got to head north, drive up to Vancouver, Canada for a speaking engagement on the morning of July the 14th. That'll be a Thursday. And we'll be speaking to Norland Limited. And they do a lot of rigging and crane work. I know some of you listen to this podcast, so we're excited to come see you. And by the time you hear this, hopefully we've already been there and got to meet a lot of you. And then the next day, we'll actually be speaking July the 15th, which is a Friday. We'll be speaking to GAT Airline Ground Support. And the way I understand it, I know GAT operates many locations across the U.S. and Canada, maybe 70 or 80 locations. And if I understand and remember right, I think Vancouver may be the largest location with the most employees in one site. And we're excited to go up there and speak to those folks on Friday, July the 15th. Then we're going to be heading back south in the car to Seattle, where we'll leave back on Saturday morning, head back home. And we won't get here till 7 or 8 o'clock, I think, Saturday night. And then we got to do a quick turnaround on Sunday, get ready, and make about a 4-hour or so drive from Atlanta, Georgia, over to Savannah, Georgia. So we're basically going from the West Coast to the East Coast. And then we have 3 speaking engagements in Savannah. The first one will be on the following Monday. So we're not going to have a whole lot of time there. I'm just sharing with you guys a little behind the scenes, what our travel schedule looks like sometimes. Sometimes it's worse than that. A lot of times it's better. But we'll be back on July 18th speaking at the Georgia Association of Water Professionals. We spoke there, I think, in 2018 or 17. There was about 1,500 people in attendance at that large conference. So I'm going to be speaking to a group of executive leaders early in the morning on that Monday. And then Rhea and I are going to speak together for about 20 minutes over their luncheon. We're going to be the featured keynote speakers. And this is like a 3 or 4 day event there, but we're speaking on Monday. And then Monday afternoon, Rhea's going to be speaking on leadership and influence to the Women Making Waves group. And so that'll be pretty cool. She got to do that last time. And then actually the next day in Savannah at a different conference and a different hotel, We'll be speaking to the Georgia Municipal Association gas section, a leadership conference there for a lot of leaders from all over Georgia who work in the municipal gas industry. Looking forward to that. And then on July the 20th, on that Wednesday, we'll be speaking to Spencer Tyson. He's the CEO and owner of ITS, Industrial Technical Services, in Savannah. And we're looking forward to speaking to him and many of his leaders. And then we'll finally make our way back home and catch up after those 8 or 9 days of traveling. We usually have quite a bit of catching up to do and a lot of different things we have to do and get ready for the next trip. But I just want to share that a little bit about what we have going on or what we have just finished up as you listen to this. But today I want to talk to you about when companies don't promote from within. And I really do hope your company promotes from within. I hope when you look around, if you've been there any length of time, that you see people being promoted from within. I hope you see them being successful as they're promoted, that they're successful in each position and they continue to get additional promotions, because if they're promoting from within, well, you can't promote somebody out of a position without having to fill that position. So then you kind of start a little train right there, right? Multiple people get moved into new positions when somebody gets a promotion, if the organization promotes from within. And I really do hope you work in a organization that promotes from within. So I want to talk to you about some of that and why it's important and what it means. That's the main thing. If you're a formal authority leader, or if you're an entry level person, or if you're somewhere in the middle, you work in a support role in engineering or HR or management, or you're a frontline worker, this is going to apply to you. It may apply to you for different reasons, but you'll get something out of it that's important to you, especially when you're planning your career in the future, because most companies, they don't do a lot of promoting from within, and they don't do it for multiple reasons. And it has if the organization doesn't promote from within, they pay a big price for it. The number one price they pay is top talent is not attracted to their organization. And if they somehow get into their organization, probably the first thing they're going to do is start looking for a way out of that organization. So you're not going to have a high performance team if you don't promote from within. So a couple of reasons leaders don't promote from within. Because, see, the organization doesn't promote anybody. It's leaders. We're talking about formal authority leaders. They're the ones that do the promoting. And I'm going to tell you this right here. If there's not a clear and consistent track record of promoting from within, I'm going to tell you exactly why that is. It's because the top leader does not value that. If the top leader valued that, that's what would be happening. If the top leader doesn't value that, the odds of that being the standard are pretty low. Everything rises and falls on leadership, as John Maxwell says, and it starts at the top. Everything going on in your organization is a direct reflection of the top leader's values. You've heard me talk about it in my book, Blue Collar Leadership and Culture, the 5 components for building high-performance teams. I hope if you're a formal authority leader or you're aspiring to be at some point in the future, you'll go get you a copy of that book, check it out, listen to it on audio. I've got a podcast series on it. It starts at 179, but highly recommend getting the paperback copy and flipping the pages, highlighting the pages, reflecting on it, going back on it in the future, and study what's in that book. But so why do leaders not promote from within? One reason is, like I told you a minute ago. Let's say there's a frontline. Let's say there's a superintendent in an organization. Superintendent. Let's say this superintendent has 5 supervisors who report to them, and then those supervisors, let's say they have team leaders on their team, and then obviously the team leaders have a team. So you go from superintendent to supervisor to team leader to frontline workforce. So that's 4 levels right there. So let's say I do promote from within. Let's say a higher up management job opens up. I do promote from within, and we got to. I'm gonna have to drill down into it because the only way I'm gonna promote from within is if I develop within. And I'll give you that nugget right there. If I'm a kind of company that doesn't develop people, not only character or not only competency, but also character, if I'm not intentionally growing and developing the people already in my company, the odds of me promoting from within are pretty low. So let's go back to forget about that for now, but let's go back to that. The superintendent is promoted to a higher up management position. Maybe say they got an ops manager or production manager. Let's say they're over all the superintendents as a production manager. So the production manager role comes open for whatever reason. The superintendent gets moved up to become the production manager. So that's one job that had to be filled from within. And now if I promote from within, I got to fill the superintendent's position, which means most likely there's going to be a supervisor. I'm going to just keep it simple. These people could come from anywhere within the organization if we are an organization that grows and develops people, because people may be moving around. They may be changing areas of focus, lots of different reasons, but I'm going to keep it simple and just go down the production chain for this little scenario. So I got to move a supervisor into the superintendent position. Then I have to move a team leader into a supervisor position. Then I have to move a frontline worker into a team leader position. That's the way it looks if I promote from within. It's just a ripple effect. And if I value that, that's exactly what I want. I want that to happen. What I just explained to you is what I want to happen. So I got to promote production manager, superintendent, or I got to fill a position as a production manager, superintendent, supervisor, team leader, and frontline worker, entry level workforce position. So when the production manager, if I promote from within, when that production manager position opens, I've got to fill 5 positions. You start to see now why a lot of companies do not promote from within. Most of them don't want to fill one position. Most often because they can't hardly do it. And the reason they can't hardly do it is because that's what they value. They value filling one position, which means they're not really developing the people. They don't have a high impact team in their organization. So high impact people don't want to work there. A high impact person is going to come in for an interview for that production manager position, and if they understand what I'm talking to you about, they're going to want to know, why are you not filling this from within? Because they already know I'm about to join your team. And if you don't promote from within, what's that tell me about when I get in that position? There's a good chance I'm going to be stuck and miserable because I'm working with a team of people who are not intentionally developed, not grown. Why would if I'm a high impact player, why would I want to be on that team? So you can see it's easy for me to get sidetracked because there's so many components to this. And I, like I always do, I'm just speaking off the cuff. I just decided I want to talk about this today, so I'm going to talk about it. I ain't. If you got to wait on me to create an outline and put a lot of thought into all this stuff, you ain't gonna have a podcast for me to listen to because I got other stuff that I need to do. So I'm trying to drop some nuggets on you. You sift through them. You figure out what's important to you, what makes sense. Number one thing I'm trying to do is provoke thought and raise your awareness. But let's go back to those 5 positions. I can either fill one position or I can fill 5 in that scenario. Weak leaders, fill 1. High impact leaders, fill 5. Think about that from a military standpoint. Whether you've been in the military or not, you probably understand the military doesn't just bring in outside people and stick them in the middle of the chain of command. They don't hire somebody out off the street and put them in as a sergeant or a master sergeant or a first lieutenant or a colonel or a general. Imagine that. Going to hire somebody out off the street, stick them in outside of the organization, doesn't know anything about it. Going to bring them in, stick them in a general slot. Doesn't even make sense when you really start to think about it. But that's what the civilian world does most of the time. The military world operates at a entirely different level. I'm a bit biased. I was in the Marine Corps, and I didn't serve a long time in there, and I was just in a infantry reserve unit. But I got a good taste of it, and I've read a lot of books. Is really where I get the most of it from. The next episode, I'm probably going to talk to you a little bit about a book that I've just started reading today, actually called Semper Fi. And that person, that author, two authors actually, they started that in that book. They talk about, if you applied Marine Corps leadership principles, military leadership principles, but specifically both of those guys were Marines. And so they're talking about what would it look like in the civilian world, or what doesn't it look like. So really, I was already going to talk about this subject, but when I started reading that book, I said, "Oh, I got to really talk about it today and put a little bit different spin on it than I was going to put on it." But see, it takes a high impact leader to want to take that responsibility that I got to fill 5 positions instead of 1. But see, a high impact leader wants to do it. They want to advance each one of those people. They want to fill each one of those positions with somebody down the chain, because they know everybody's watching. High impact leaders, they know everybody's watching. They also know what they're going to see. How can you be loyal to a company that's not going to offer you a chance for advancement? Beyond that, they don't even want to help you advance. And you see, a company who wants to fill those 5 positions, a high impact leader who wants to promote from within, they also know that sometimes they're not going to have positions available when somebody's ready to be promoted. And quite often those people are going to leave the organization, going to go somewhere else. But a high impact leader is still going to be proud for those people. They're still going to grow and develop those people while they're on their team, knowing that may very well happen. And if those people are rock stars, if they're MVPs while they're on the team because they're trying to prepare themselves to be promoted from within, and then they kind of outrun the leader or the organization and they have to go somewhere else, that high impact leader is going to give them a tremendous reference. They're going to help them go get another job. And when they do, guess what's going to happen? When that person moves on, there's going to be a slot open up, and that high impact leader who's hungry to promote someone who has earned it and deserves it, well, they're going to get to fill in the slot. And they don't mind responsibility, especially that kind of responsibility, because that's high impact leadership responsibility. So that's what they're going to do. They're going to be happy about it. They already in their mind have a good idea who's ready. Because if you're leading, then you're building relationships with people. You know who's ready. You ain't got to go through all this office politic, goofy, silly, crazy stuff that organizations do that do not grow and develop their people. Everything doesn't have to be politically correct. High impact leaders know what's going on. If they got a high performance team, the high performance team knows what's going on. There ain't a lot of backstabbing. There's a good healthy competition nonstop, because nobody knows when the position's going to come open, but they all want to be preparing for that position, whichever one they want. So all that crazy, silly office politics, where you see a lot of companies that play all these games to fill 5 positions, it'd take them 2 or 3 years, because they got to post it. They got to let everybody fill in the paperwork. They got to play the games, even though they probably either know if they're going outside to get someone. They got to play the game because that's what they do. That's management of people. It's silly. It's basically what I lived my entire 20-year career, being engaged in all that silliness. There's people out there listening to this podcast probably ain't going to like this. It's just a fact. It's silly. But that's what they have to do. They don't have a choice. They don't have any other way to do it, because they're playing that game. So they have to play by those rules. But high impact leaders, they play by a different set of rules. They're growing and preparing people and to advance. Everybody knows it. So when a slot comes open, they're ready to fill it. Everybody knows it. Everybody almost probably knows who's going to get the job. And then it's just like playing checkers. You just move one, move the next one, move the next one, move the next one, move the next one, and then you carry on with business and you keep killing it and you keep making it happen. But you can't do that when there's politics involved and management of people involved. You got to play the games. And a lot of people play those games. But if you're a high performance leader, high impact leader, want to build a high performance team, you don't have to play those games. But you got to play by the rules that high performance leaders play by, and high impact leaders and high performance teams play by. You got to learn a whole lot of stuff that I teach you in a whole lot of my books, and you got to be able to implement it. Then you can rock and roll. But when you're not developing and promoting the people from within the organization, you're basically turning off anybody who's willing to come in there every day and continue to work in that environment. You've turned those folks off. Yeah, they may still be working there, but they're doing the minimum job to get the maximum pay. And you're probably paying them the minimum to try to get the maximum effort. Two bads don't make a good in that case. But that's what happens. What it means to the employees, if they want to thrive and excel, they got to go somewhere else. So if there's some of you listening who are just hungry employees within a company, your company's not doing anything leadership development wise. You're just doing this on your own. You're reading books like I write, or you're listening to my podcast or others, and you're trying to get better. I'm going to tell you what's exactly going to happen. If your company doesn't promote from within, you're going to do it, which means you're going to go promote yourself right on out the door. You're going to fire the boss and go find a better company, which you deserve. And you're going to interview the interviewer when you go there. One of the questions you're going to ask them is, do you promote from within? If they say yes, you're going to be saying, why am I interviewing for this job? I don't work here already. So you're gonna see what kind of answer they can give you. And if you're really proactive, you could say, introduce me to some people here who've been promoted from down in the ranks, who've climbed their way up. I'd like to talk to some of those people. See what happens. But the big key, the big takeaway is it's going to be the character of the leadership team who decides if you're going to go through all the trouble. And again, it's not trouble for high impact leaders. It's only trouble for low impact leaders, managers of people, to fill the slots. And again, if you working in the same type industries with the same type leaders that I come up in, that I grew up in, that I still walk in on a regular basis, I'm trying to help them transform. When I walk in these days, before I was just a part of the machine, and it didn't work very well. It was pretty painful. I did get promoted from within in companies that don't typically promote from within, but I did that because I developed myself. You've heard me on my other podcasts. I wasn't working on my character all those years from 1988 to 2008, but I was constantly working on my competency. And that was enough in a normal organization that doesn't value character. Me working on developing my competency was enough to prepare me for positions. And I got promoted a lot, but most people didn't. Most people kept doing the same old thing they've been doing forever. Even if they wanted to get promoted, they still didn't get promoted. And that falls back to the leadership, because there was no leadership development initiative in the organization. Any of them that I worked in for those 20 years. The only competency training they did was what was required. What they had to do to teach somebody to do a job. Character training, 0. That's how much I saw, because it's not required to do the job. You probably worked in some places where people don't have too much of a high degree of character at all. There's a lot of moaning, groaning, complaining amongst the team, backstabbing each other, backstabbing the boss backstabbing the team, the bosses backstabbing other bosses, the boss backstabbing their boss, managers throwing people under the bus, throwing each other under the bus. Round and round and round they go. That's what it looks like when there's no character development initiative consistently and constantly in an organization. And again, that's most of them. I'm on a mission to try to help organizations who want to change. But see, again, it's not organizations, it's leaders like you. Again, I don't care what level you're at. You may be an entry level today, but 10 years from now, you may be leading the whole show. And 10 years from now, if you've been reading and studying the kind of stuff I write about, talk about, and others who value what I value, write about and talk about, 10 years from now, you're going to be doing some amazing stuff. Or you may be a leader, a formal leader who's been in a formal role for a while, and you're just discovering this type stuff. I meet a lot of you, and you start accelerating. One of the things you most often do is accelerate out the door to a better organization once you realize what's not going on that should be going on. Because usually what will happen is you'll get gung-ho, and you'll try to implement it, get some of your leaders to buy into it, and then you'll realize real quick they ain't interested, and you'll move on. And then there are top leaders who maybe have never heard of this stuff. They discover my content somehow, and they get drawn into it, and then they realize, hey, I need to make some adjustments with the way that I lead. Maybe I've been managing all this time, didn't know it. I'm not a bad person, but once I get exposed to it, I got to do something about it. And I really, really, really love meeting these leaders because they call me up, they order books, they get us in to start speaking to their folks. They start doing book studies. They start transforming their organization. And when you're the top leader, you can do that. They run into a completely different set of problems. They run into problems of people who are used to the old way, and now the leader says, hey, we gotta lead in a better way. We've got to become better leaders, and sometimes they don't want to do it. And then the leader's got the tough job, the top leader. Now I got to get these on folks. They either got to get on the train or get away from the train because the train is moving along. We hope they'll get on the train, but a lot of times they don't want to. A lot of times they want to quit but stay. They want to quit on the leader, but they want to keep getting their paycheck or their deposit into in their bank. Paycheck's kind of an old thing these days. A lot of people don't do paychecks, but you understand what I'm talking about. So just think about that. What today's lesson was really about. Does your company promote from within? Again, I hope so. I hope they do. I hope I've shared a little bit of light on that subject, raise your level of awareness, provoke some thought so you understand what that means. And again, I don't know who you are and what you do, but you got to figure out what I'm talking about. How does it apply to you? What do you need to do different? What do you need to plan for? If you're a formal authority leader, what do you need to start doing that you're not doing? What do you need to stop doing that you are doing? And what's working right for you? What do you need to keep doing? Again, those principles also, they apply to anybody at any level. But if you're a formal authority leader, if you try and take the shortcut because it's easy and it's fast, you just want to hire somebody from the outside, forget about all those loyal people on the inside, you're welcome to do it, but you're going to pay a price for it. And yes, this stuff is hard. If you just decide to start doing the right thing and you haven't had a formal leadership development program, and it really ain't a program, it's a way you do business as a leader. If you haven't had that, you don't have that track record, it's going to be hard. You got to establish the track record to make it easier. You may have to do a little of both to begin with. You may have to say, well, I'm going to hire this one from the outside, but I'm going to get busy developing these on the inside. So hopefully next time I won't have to do that. Hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mac Story's Blue Collar Leadership series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mac's books, programs, special offers, certifications, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.